The gunshots echo through the basement ceiling like thunder. Jamaima Smith presses her 3-year-old daughter against her chest, one hand covering Zuri's ear, the other cradling her small head. The child's screams pierce through the chaos above. Automatic weapons fire, explosions, men shouting in Korean. Then, silence. A silence more terrifying than the violence. Footsteps approach the sealed hatch. Heavy, deliberate. The mechanism begins to disengage. Jemima positions herself between the opening and her daughter, ready to fight with her bare hands if necessary. The hatch swings open. A figure stands backlit by dawn, blood splattered across his face and clothing. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. This story began 3 years earlier, on a rain-soaked night in Seoul, when a young woman made the most difficult decision of her life. 3 years later, the Oregon coast wakes slowly, reluctantly, beneath layers of morning fog. The mist clings to everything like a secret trying to stay hidden. Through the dense cover of ancient pines and towering cedars, a weathered cabin stands alone, almost invisible unless you know exactly where to look. This is intentional. Everything about this place is intentional. Jamaima Smith opens the bookstore at exactly 7:30, the same time she opens it every morning. Second chapters. The hand-painted sign reads, letters slightly faded from salt air and time. She's 28 now, though some mornings she feels decades older. Her dark skin glows warm even in the dim coastal light. Her hair pulled back in a practical bun, her movements efficient and cautious. Always cautious. A customer enters, paying for a used paperback with a credit card. Jemima's smile is pleasant but distant as she processes the transaction. When the customer leaves, she immediately checks the street through the window, scanning for anything unusual. This is her routine. This has been her routine for 3 years. Work, vigilance, survival. The day passes in its familiar rhythm. Jemima accepts only cash for her own purchases at the grocery store, avoiding the electronic trail that credit cards leave. No social media, no photographs, no digital footprint. She drives a 15-year-old Honda, paid for in cash, registered under a name that isn't quite hers. Everything about her life is designed to be forgettable, unremarkable, invisible. Evening finds her back at the cabin, where the real Jemima exists, where she can breathe, where she can be a mother. Zuri bursts through the door the moment Jemima's car pulls up, all energy and joy and beautiful innocence. At 3 years old, she's a perfect blend of her parents, though she knows nothing of one of them. Her skin is a warm, rich brown, her hair a mass of soft curls that Jemima tends to every evening. But it's her eyes that stop people. Almond-shaped, striking, the deepest obsidian black that seems to see more than a child her age should. She got those eyes from her father. "Mama, Mama, I found 3 new shells today," Zuri announces, holding up her treasures. Mrs. Chen, the elderly neighbor who watches Zuri during work hours, waves from her porch next door. "She's been talking about those shells all afternoon," Mrs. Chen calls out in her accented English, warm and maternal. That child could talk to the ocean itself. Jemima scoops Zuri into her arms, breathing in the scent of her daughter's hair, feeling the weight of her, real, solid, safe. This is what matters. This moment, this child, this life they've built from nothing. Inside the cabin, Jemima cooks dinner while Zuri arranges her shells on the windowsill, creating patterns only she understands. The kitchen is small but warm, filled with the smell of seasoned chicken and rice. On the counter, a worn notebook sits open to a page of Korean words and phrases. Jemima has been teaching herself, wanting Zuri to know at least something of her heritage, even if she can never know the whole truth. "Mama, why don't I have a daddy?" Zuri asks suddenly, her small voice cutting through the domestic peace like a knife. Jemaima's hands still over the cutting board. This question comes periodically, each time landing like a fresh wound. She turns, kneels to her daughter's eye level, brushes a curl from Zuri's face. "Some stories are for when you're older, baby girl," she says softly. "What matters is that you're loved. So loved. But other kids have daddies." "I know, sweetheart, I know." Zuri accepts this, as she always does, her attention already shifting back to her shells. But Jamaima remains kneeling there for a moment longer, fighting the wave of memory that threatens to pull her under. That night, after Zuri falls asleep, Jamaima sits by the window with a cup of tea growing cold in her hands. She stares out at the darkness beyond the glass, seeing nothing and everything. Sleep doesn't come easily these nights. It never has, not since Seoul. She thinks about that night 3 years ago. The rain, the screaming. Her sister Kennedy's body on the pavement, caught in crossfire meant for someone else. Someone in his organization. The Chayansa Syndicate doesn't apologize for collateral damage. They don't even acknowledge it. Kennedy had just been visiting. Just wanted to see her older sister. Meet her new boyfriend. Wrong place. Wrong time. Wrong world. Jamaima had been 4 months pregnant then. Barely showing. She'd looked at Kennedy's lifeless eyes and made a decision in that moment that would define everything that came after. She would run. She would protect this child growing inside her from the world that had killed her baby sister. From him. From everything he represented. She hadn't said goodbye. Hadn't left a note. She'd packed a single bag, withdrawn everything from her small savings account, and disappeared into the night. Getting out of Seoul had been terrifying. Getting out of South Korea had been nearly impossible. But she'd done it. For Zuri. For the daughter who wasn't born yet, but already needed protecting. A sound outside jerks Jamaima from her memories. She's on her feet instantly, heart hammering, peering through the curtains. Nothing. Just the wind in the pines. Just her paranoia, as constant as her heartbeat. She opens a book on the shelf, removes an old photograph hidden inside. Seoul, 3.5 years ago. She's standing beside a man on a rooftop, the city glittering behind them. She's laughing, her head tilted back, caught in a moment of pure joy. The man beside her is striking. Sharp features, intense eyes, an arm wrapped around her waist with casual possessiveness. Jin Kang-min, the man she loved. The man she fled. Jamaima whispers to the darkness, to the sleeping child in the next room, "You'll never know that world. You'll be free. I promise you'll be free." But freedom, Jamaima is about to learn, is not something you can promise. Not when you've loved someone like Jin Kang-min. Not when you've carried his child. The next morning begins like any other. Jamaima drops Zuri at Mrs. Chen's house, heads to the bookstore, goes through her careful routines. But when she returns home that afternoon, her world stops spinning. 3 black Mercedes SUVs are parked at her property line. The vehicles are pristine, expensive, completely out of place on this remote coastal road. Her hands go numb on the steering wheel. For a moment she can't breathe, can't think, can't do anything but stare at those vehicles and know, with absolute certainty, that her 3 years of running have just ended. She considers driving away, just pressing the accelerator and never looking back. But Zuri is at Mrs. Chen's house. She can't leave Zuri. She will never leave Zuri. Jamaima parks her old Honda and steps out on legs that feel like water. 3 men stand near the vehicles, but her eyes lock on only one. He stands slightly apart from the others, hands visible at his sides, posture non-threatening but somehow commanding the entire space. He's wearing a charcoal suit that probably costs more than her car, perfectly tailored to his frame. His hair is shorter than she remembers, his face harder, but those eyes she sees every day in her daughter's face, are exactly the same. Jin Kang-min looks at her across the 30 feet of gravel and grass, and 3 years collapse into nothing. You need to leave, Jamaima says, her voice steadier than she feels. Right now. Jin doesn't move. His voice, when he speaks, is measured and controlled, but she can hear the emotion underneath, coiled tight like a spring. 3 years, Jamaima. 3 years you made me search. I had my reasons. You had my daughter. The words hang in the air between them, heavy with accusation and pain and undeniable truth. Jemima's hands clench into fists at her sides. I had our daughter, and I protected her. From you, from your world, from everything that destroys. Jin takes a step forward. Jamaima takes a step back. Something flickers across his face. Hurt, maybe, or recognition of just how much damage exists between them now. Where is she? He asks, and his voice cracks just slightly on the question. Far from you, far from your world, far from everything that kills innocent people. You think I wanted Kennedy to die? Jin's control slips for just a moment. You think I chose for that to happen? You chose your life. You chose to be what you are. I chose to leave before it destroyed us too. Jin's jaw tightens. Behind him, his men shift slightly. The older one with scars on his face must be Minjun. The woman standing silent and deadly must be Yuna. Jamaima recognizes them from her time in Seoul, though she'd never spoken to them. They're Jin's most trusted people. Which means this is serious. Which means he's not leaving. You think I chose to be born into the Chayansa Syndicate? Jin asks, his voice dropping lower, more dangerous. You think I had a choice about any of this? You chose to stay. I chose to leave. For her. The sound of a car on the road makes them both turn. Mrs. Chen's old station wagon appears through the trees earlier than expected. No. No, no, no. Jamaima moves instinctively toward the approaching vehicle, but she's too slow. Everything is happening too fast. Mrs. Chen parks and Zuri jumps out before the elderly woman can even get the door fully open. Mama! The child calls out, running toward the cabin, her small feet kicking up gravel. Then she stops. She's seen the strangers, the vehicles, the unusual situation. Her 3-year-old mind tries to process what she's seeing. She looks at her mother, then at the strangers, then back at her mother. Looking for cues, for safety, for understanding. Jin sees his daughter for the first time. Time doesn't slow. It stops completely. Jin Kang-min, head of the Chayansa Syndicate. Man responsible for operations spanning 3 continents. Man who has ordered deaths and destroyed lives and built an empire on blood and steel. Sees his daughter for the first time and his carefully constructed control shatters visibly. His hands tremble. His breath catches audibly. His eyes, those obsidian eyes that Zuri inherited perfectly, go wide with something that might be wonder, might be agony, might be both. Zuri stares back at him with those same eyes, curious and unafraid in the way only children can be. She's never seen someone who looks like her before. Not really. Her mother is beautiful, but different. This stranger has her eyes. She doesn't understand what that means, but she notices it. Jin drops slowly to one knee, bringing himself to her level. His voice, when he speaks, is completely different from the controlled tone he'd used with Jamaima. It breaks, rasps, barely manages to form words. My name is Jin. What's yours? Zuri looks to her mother for permission. Jamaima wants to scream, wants to snatch her daughter and run, but she's frozen, watching something inevitable unfold. Zuri, the child answers, quietly. Zuri, Jin repeats. And the way he says it, like a prayer, like a revelation, like the answer to a question he's been asking for 3 years, makes Jamaima's chest tighten painfully. Why are you crying? Zuri asks, Because tears are sliding down Jin's face, though his expression hasn't changed. Because you're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, he answers honestly. Jamaima moves then, putting herself between Jin and Zuri, scooping her daughter into her arms. You need to go. Now. You need to leave us alone. Jin stands slowly, wiping his face with the back of his hand. When he looks at Jamaima again, everything has changed. He's no longer the man asking questions. He's the man who has found what he's been searching for and will never let it go. I'm not going anywhere, he says, and it's not a threat. It's a fact. Not ever again. Inside the cabin, Zuri is sent to play in her room with firm instructions to stay there. The door closes and Jamaima whirls on Jin, her fury finally unleashed now that her daughter can't see it. You have no right to be here, no right to show up and… Jin places a folder on the small kitchen table. Legal documents, property deeds, her name crossed out, his name written in. The date stamps show they were filed 2 weeks ago. What is this? Jamaima's voice is dangerously quiet. I purchased this property 2 weeks ago. The cabin, the surrounding 50 acres, the access road leading in, all of it. The floor seems to tilt beneath her feet. What? You can't run from what you don't own, Jamaima, and you own nothing here anymore. The betrayal hits her like a physical blow. You think buying land makes you a father? You think money gives you rights to her? Jin's control is back, iron hard and absolute. 3 years of searching, 37 countries, 243 false leads. I followed every ghost, every rumor, every possibility. 6 attempts were made on my life during that time. Rivals who thought my distraction made me weak. I survived them all. I never stopped looking. That gives me rights. She's not property. She's a child. My child. Our child, Jin corrects, and his voice drops to something almost gentle. She's ours, Jamaima. She has my eyes, my blood, my protection. Whether you want to acknowledge it or not. Jamaima's anger cracks, revealing the grief underneath. Your world killed Kennedy, my baby sister. She was visiting me, Jin. Just visiting. She wanted to meet you. Wanted to see if you were good enough for me. And she died in crossfire meant for someone in your organization. She was 23 years old. Jin's face goes carefully blank. I remember Kennedy. I remember everything about that night. Do you remember what you did after? How many people you killed in retaliation? The Mugunghwa Triad faction responsible for that attack doesn't exist anymore. Not a single member survived. And that makes it better? That makes her alive again? No, Jin says, quietly. But it ensures no one makes the same mistake twice. It ensures they remember that touching what's mine has consequences. We're not yours. Jamaima's voice rises. I left. I chose to leave. I chose to protect Zuri from becoming another Kennedy. You chose to run because you were grieving and terrified, and I understand that. But you're wrong about one thing. Jin moves closer, and Jamaima holds her ground even though every instinct screams to back away. My world didn't kill Kennedy, the Mugunghwa Triad did. And they paid. But here's what you don't understand. Zuri exists, whether she's in my world or not. Her DNA makes her a target. Her parentage makes her valuable. The only question is whether she has my protection or faces those threats alone. Then I'll take her somewhere even you can't find us. No, Jin says simply. You won't. Because I own this property. Because I know your patterns now. Because I have resources you can't imagine. And because… His voice softens again. You loved me once. You carried my child. Some part of you knows I'm right. Jamaima wants to scream that he's wrong, that love has nothing to do with this. But the words stick in her throat. Because she did love him. God help her. She loved him completely. And standing this close to him now, seeing him look at Zuri the way he did, something in her chest is cracking open despite her best efforts to keep it sealed. You think love is freedom, Jin continues. You think it's gentleness and choice and soft words? But that's not what love is to me. Love is absolute responsibility. It's a fortress. It's the elimination of every threat before it reaches the people I protect. It's control, not to cage, but to shield. That's not love, Jin. That's tyranny. Then call me a tyrant, but I will not allow my daughter to live unprotected. I will not be excluded from her life. And I will not apologize for doing whatever is necessary to keep her safe. They stand there, locked in a battle of wills, until a small voice breaks the tension. Mama. Zuri stands in the doorway of her room, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit. Why are you yelling? Jamaima immediately softens, crossing to her daughter. I'm sorry, baby. Mama's just talking. It's okay. Zuri looks past her mother to Jin. Are you staying for dinner, Mr. Jin? The question is so innocent, so childlike, that both adults freeze. Jin looks at Jamaima. She sees the plea in his eyes, sees him asking permission for something he could take by force but won't. Not with Zuri watching. Not yet. Yes, Jamaima hears herself say, though the word tastes like surrender. Mr. Jin is staying for dinner. The meal is awkward and surreal. Zuri chatters happily, asking Jin questions with 3-year-old curiosity, while Jamaima moves through the motions of cooking in a daze. Jin's men have set up a perimeter outside. She can see them through the windows, professional and vigilant. Her home has become something else. Her sanctuary has been breached. Why do you talk different? Zuri asks Jin, noticing his accent. I'm from Korea. Very far away across the ocean. Is that why you have eyes like me? Jin's hand trembles slightly as he reaches for his water glass. Yes, that's exactly why. Are you Mama's friend? Jin looks at Jamaima across the table. The weight of history, of love and loss and 3 years of absence sits between them like a living thing. I'm someone who cares about both of you very much, he says carefully. After dinner, after Zuri's bath and bedtime story, Jamaima tucks her daughter into bed. Zuri's eyes are already drooping, exhausted from the emotional day even if she doesn't understand why. I like Mr. Jin, Zuri murmurs sleepily. He's nice. Sleep, baby girl, Jamaima whispers, kissing her forehead. Just sleep. She finds Jin on the porch, standing guard like a sentinel. He hasn't asked permission to stay, hasn't asked where he's sleeping. He's simply positioned himself between the cabin and the forest, between his family and any threat that might emerge from the darkness. You can't just insert yourself into our lives like this, Jamaima says quietly. Jin doesn't turn. I'm not inserting myself. I'm reclaiming what was always mine to protect. She's not yours to claim. She's mine to love, mine to guard, mine to die for if necessary. You can hate me for many things, Jamaima, but you can't hate me for wanting to protect my daughter. Jamaima stands beside him, staring out at the dark forest. I'm terrified of you, of what you represent, of what you'll turn her into. Then watch me, Jin says. Watch me be better than what you fear. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to let me prove myself. Days pass in strange, tense domesticity. Jin doesn't leave. His men rotate shifts outside, setting up security equipment that Jamaima doesn't fully understand. Jin attempts fatherhood with awkward determination, reading English storybooks he clearly struggles with, learning to braid Zuri's hair from a YouTube video, teaching her simple Korean words. Jamaima watches him with her daughter and sees something she didn't expect. Vulnerability. Jin Kang-min, who commands an empire, who has blood on his hands, who has survived assassination attempts and gang wars, is terrified of making mistakes with his 3-year-old daughter. He approaches Zuri like she's made of glass, like one wrong word might shatter something precious. Appa, Zuri says one morning, testing the word. That means father in Korean, right? Jin freezes in the middle of pouring cereal. Yes, that's what it means. Can I call you Appa? He has to set the cereal box down because his hands are shaking too badly to hold it. If you want to. Yes. Okay, Appa, Zuri says easily, like it's the simplest thing in the world, like she hasn't just completely undone a grown man with 2 words. Jin turns away, and Jamaima sees him wipe his eyes quickly. She feels something crack in her chest. This is the man she loved in Seoul. This is the man hidden beneath the violence and power. This is the man she'd thought was lost forever, but reality intrudes on their fragile peace. Yuna, the silent bodyguard, discovers surveillance equipment hidden in the trees surrounding the property. Professional grade, recently placed. Someone has been watching them. Jin examines the equipment with cold precision. 3 days old. They've been watching since I arrived. Who? Jamaima demands, fear icing her veins. People who should know better. That night, the power goes out. Complete darkness except for the emergency lights that flicker on. Jin is in tactical mode instantly, weapon drawn from somewhere Jamaima didn't even realize he was carrying. He secures Zuri and Jamaima in an interior room, checks the perimeter with Minjun and Yuna. Morning reveals the truth. Power line cut, professionally sabotaged, and on the porch, delicate and deadly, an origami crane. Inside the folded paper, a message in Korean characters. Jamaima watches Jin read it, sees his expression transform from concern to lethal rage. What does it say? Jin's voice is flat, emotionless in the way that means he's most dangerous. It says, the daughter of Chayansa belongs to no one, or belongs to everyone. What does that mean? It means the Mugunghwa Triad knows about Zuri. They know she's my heir. They know she's leverage. Jin makes rapid phone calls in Korean, mobilizing his organization with frightening efficiency. Then we disappear, Jamaima says desperately. New identities, new country. Somewhere even they can't. There is no disappearing from this. Jin's control snaps. Don't you understand? I spent 3 years searching for you. Every intelligence network, every contact, every resource. If I can find you, they can find you. The only difference is that I love her, and they see her as a weapon. The truth of his words settles over Jamaima like a weight. There is no running. There never was. She's been living in borrowed time, false safety, an illusion that's just been shattered. What do we do? She whispers. Jin's phone rings. It's Minjun. Jin listens, his face hardening with each second. When he speaks, it's in rapid Korean, orders given with absolute authority. He hangs up and turns to Jamaima. Pack what matters to Zuri. We're moving to a secure location tonight. No. I won't let you drag her into your world. The world came to her. Jin's voice rises, then catches himself, lowers it again. The war found her anyway, Jamaima. I'm just the only thing standing between her and everyone who wants to use her against me. But before they can pack anything, before they can move, Minjun's voice comes through Jin's earpiece with urgent news. Jin's face drains of color. How many? He asks in English, for Jamaima's benefit. Yuna appears at the door. 4 vehicles, 12 hostiles, armed, 2 minutes out. Jin moves with military precision. He pulls up a floor, panel in the kitchen, a hidden compartment Jamaima never knew existed. Beneath it, a reinforced steel hatch leading to a basement safe room. When did you... The first day I arrived, Jin says, already opening the hatch. Get Zuri. Now. Jamaima runs to the bedroom, scoops up her confused daughter. Mama, what's happening? We're playing a game, baby, a quiet game. The sound of vehicles approaching fast on the gravel road, multiple engines, men shouting in Korean. Yuna is already positioning herself, Minjun coordinating with unseen backup through his radio. Jin ushers Jamaima and Zuri toward the open hatch. Steps lead down into darkness, but there's a faint glow. Emergency lighting, supplies, a shelter built for exactly this moment. Zuri starts crying, sensing the fear in her mother. "Mama, Mr. Jin, Appa." Jin stops at the top of the stairs. He looks down at his daughter and something profound and breaking crosses his face. He descends 3 steps, kneels so he's eye level with Zuri despite the awkward angle. "Zuri, listen to me," he says, his voice steady despite everything. "I will protect you. Whatever it costs. Whatever I have to become. You and your mother are safe. Do you believe me? Don't go." Zuri reaches for him with small hands. Jin catches one tiny hand in his, holds it for just a second. His hand trembles. "I'll come back. I promise. But right now, I need you to be brave. Can you be brave for me?" Zuri nods, tears streaming down her face. Jin looks at Jamaima. Everything they've been and everything they could be passes between them in that look. "Keep her safe," he says. "No matter what you hear. Don't open this hatch for anyone but me." "Jin!" But he's already moving, already closing the hatch. Jamaima hears locks engaging. Multiple locks, heavy bolts, sealing them in absolute safety and absolute darkness except for the emergency lights. Above them, muffled sounds, car doors slamming, voices shouting in Korean, footsteps on the porch, Jin's voice, cold and commanding, speaking rapid Korean. Then another voice responds, angry, demanding. The conversation escalates. Jamaima holds Zuri in the darkness, covering her ears, but she can still hear. They both can still hear. A gunshot, then another. Then the world above explodes into violence. Automatic weapons fire. The distinctive sound of breaking glass. Something heavy hitting the floor above. Men screaming. More gunshots. The pop of flashbangs. The whoosh of something catching fire. Zuri screams and screams and screams. Jamaima holds her daughter, rocks her, sings to her. Anything to drown out the sounds of warfare happening in the home that was supposed to be their sanctuary. Time loses meaning. Seconds or hours, she can't tell. The violence continues. Then, gradually, silence. More terrifying than the gunfire, because silence could mean anything. Silence could mean Jin is dead. Silence could mean they're coming for the safe room next. Minutes pass. 5, 10, 20. Jamaima's arms ache from holding Zuri, but she doesn't let go. Won't let go. Will never let go. Footsteps above. Slow. Deliberate. The sound of debris being moved. Something heavy dragged across the floor. More footsteps. Multiple people now. The hatch mechanism begins to disengage, the heavy bolts drawing back one by one. Each sound like a gunshot in the silence. Jamaima positions herself between the opening hatch and her daughter. If they come through that opening, they'll have to go through her first. She's not armed, she's not trained, but she's a mother, and that makes her the most dangerous thing in this room. The hatch swings open. Dawn light streams in, gray and weak, but blinding after the darkness. A figure stands silhouetted against the light. Blood spatters his face and clothing. His suit is torn. His hands are shaking. "It's over," Jin Kang-min says, his voice rough and exhausted. "You're safe." He descends the stairs slowly, carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. Jamaima sees the blood on him, some his, most not. She sees the exhaustion, the weight of what he's just done. She sees the man who just killed for them, who just became exactly what she feared, who just proved exactly why Zuri needs him. Zuri lifts her head from her mother's shoulder, sees Jin, and reaches for him. "Appa." Jin takes his daughter in his arms and Jamaima watches this man, this violent, dangerous, powerful man, hold their child like she's the only thing in the world that matters. Because right now, she is. Outside, the morning reveals the aftermath. 3 vehicles destroyed, scorch marks on the property, bullet casings everywhere. But no bodies. Jin's team has already cleaned up, already erased the evidence, already made it like this never happened. This is what he does. This is who he is. Minjun and Yuna stand guard, professional and expressionless. How many times have they done this? How many times has Jin's world exploded into violence and then been erased like it never existed? Jamaima looks at the man holding her daughter, looks at the destruction around them, looks at the life she thought she'd built crumbling into ash and reality. There is no running. There never was. The only question now is whether she fights this or accepts it. Whether she keeps trying to protect Zuri from Jin's world or accepts that the world has already claimed them both. Jin meets her eyes over Zuri's head. His face is asking a question, offering a choice, demanding an answer. But that answer will have to wait. Because this story isn't over. It's just beginning. If you're captivated by Jamaima and Jin's story, if you need to know what happens next, if you can't wait to see whether love or survival wins this impossible battle, hit that like button right now and subscribe to this channel. Part 2 is coming, and trust me, you do not want to miss what happens when Jamaima makes her choice. Will she accept Jin's protection? Will she keep fighting? And what happens when the real threat emerges? Subscribe now, because Part 2 will answer all these questions and more.